Interest rates are falling and it's really, really good news. The problem is you want to refinance and you don't want to do it too early. You're afraid that you're going to refinance too soon and rates are going to fall the day after you refinance, and you're paralyzed by indecision. Paralyzed because you hear on the news, you read in the newspaper, if there's such a thing as a newspaper anymore, that says the Federal Reserve is going to keep lowering interest rates and mortgage rates are expected to go down. What should you do? Well, I'm going to help kind of educate you on what steps you need to take and, more importantly, what things you need to think about when you're in this position. So first of all, it's a better position to be in than when interest rates are going up. The number one thing you have to think about is your opportunity cost. What's an opportunity cost? It is what it is costing you to do nothing or to do something else. So if you do one thing, you can't do something else. If I go to the movies, my opportunity cost is I couldn't have gone and played miniature golf. So there's an opportunity cost to everything that you do in life. Even doing nothing has an opportunity cost. If you don't refinance, you lose the opportunity to get the benefit that would come from refinancing, and you end up stretching out what your current situation is longer than it needed to be. So a lot of this has to do with, why are you thinking of refinancing? Now, there's three reasons essentially to refinance. It's to pull cash out of your property, to lower your monthly payment, or shorten your term, okay? Either way, ultimately what it comes down to is taking chips off the table incrementally without paying a bunch of money in fees. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean is, look, if we think interest rates are going to fall further, then you should try to minimize the cost that you are paying on the loan. Now, the problem is minimizing the cost means you're taking a higher interest rate than what you otherwise could have gotten. So if the market is at 5.5% and you want a low cost loan, you could be paying 6 or 6.25%. Now you have to decide, is that worth it? Is doing a loan at 6 or 6.25 worth it? Is it going to help me accomplish my goals and get started making progress in what I want to do? If it is, pull the trigger because it's minimal cost. You then can refinance again when rates are at 4.5, and you can refinance at 5 or 5.25 with minimal cost. You're paying more in interest at that time than what you could have gotten if you paid the fees. Now, for some people, that's not a choice. If your credit score is not good, if your debt to income ratio or your equity position is not good, then you might be in a position where I don't have an option but to charge fees because you're considered a higher risk transaction. And in that case, we have to look at stopping the bleeding. Why are we in the position that we're in right now? And so, for some people, it's, hey, my credit card debt is really, really high. Well, guess what? You're going to be continuing to get deeper in a hole. Your credit score is falling because you owe more on your credit cards compared to the credit limit than you used to. And as that number keeps getting higher, it keeps impacting your credit score more and more and more. And so you have to figure out, hey, when do I pull the trigger to stop the bleeding? And the truth is, when you are bleeding, you have to stop the bleeding right away. I'm going to use a pretty extreme analogy here. But if you think about the medical industry, and they talk about, hey, what to do when somebody has been in a car accident and somebody is in pretty bad pain when they're in the car accident, and you think, hey, that person could have neck injuries, they could have back injuries. And so the first thing that we're taught, don't move them. Do not take somebody out of the car because you could hurt them more already than they're already hurt because you're moving them and causing bigger problems. But what if the car's on fire? If the car's on fire, you have to take them out because the fire is going to kill them. And so your choice is leave them in the car so that you don't hurt their back or their neck that might be hurt, or leave them in the car where they're going to get burned and they're definitely going to get hurt. Well, that decision is really easy. You pull them out of the car and you pull them out as quickly as possible. And if you created more harm to their back or to their neck, that's an acceptable consequence of solving the more immediate need. And for a lot of people right now, consumer debt is super high. They owe a lot of money on their credit cards. Their credit score is dropping. I have a client right now who's finishing up a refinance, and he currently owes 3.9% interest, and I'm putting him at 6.25%. Why in the world would he do that? Because his credit card debt has ballooned, and his credit score is dropping. In January of this year, his credit score was 720. And he said, John, I don't know if I want to do it. We were talking about doing a second mortgage for him, and rates at that point for a second were like 10%, way cheaper than he was paying on his credit cards. But he goes, 10% is too high. I want to wait until I can get a lower mortgage rate and either get a lower second mortgage rate or get a lower first mortgage, combining everything together, because I don't want to pay, 6.25. Actually, at that time it was around 7.25 for a new first mortgage, or 10% for a second. So he didn't do anything. And the problem is his credit card debt kept going up, and it went up just enough that it triggered a change in his score that dropped from 720 to 620. It was the straw that broke the camel's back. There was a minor increase, incremental increase in all of his credit card balances, and it went just too far. And his credit score dropped. And he called me back in April and he said, John, I'm ready to move forward. And I said, great, I'll pull your credit. That's when I noticed the credit score dropped. And I said, I can't do anything at a 620. I can't do the second. We have to do the whole refinance. And he says, no. I'll figure out a way to pay down my credit cards and get my credit score up. And he didn't. And so it wasn't until August that he called me up and said, John, I can't do it. My score's dropped even further. My credit card debt has gone up even further. He's bleeding. He's sitting there bleeding in a car that is on fire. And we had to drag him out of the car. And it was the best thing for him. It saved him about for him, he had about $75,000 in credit card debt. And he was paying, his mortgage payment was about $3,000 a month. And he was paying another, there was another couple loans in there, but he had another $3,000 in monthly payments. So he was paying $6,000 a month. It was crazy. We lowered his overall payment to $4,000 a month, saving him $2,000 a month, even though he was at a 3.9% interest rate on his mortgage, and I was moving him to 6.25%. The fact is, we saved him $2,000 a month. We stopped the bleeding. He kept waiting, hoping rates would go lower, hoping he could get a better deal. You got to be really, really careful. If you're in great shape and everything is looking good, hey, you can wait, but you're still wasting some money, especially if you have a higher interest rate. I've got a client right now that they're at a 7.25% interest rate on a home I helped them buy last year. We could get them right now around a 5.9% interest rate paying normal fees. But we can put them at 6.625 with them paying no fees. It saves them $250 a month. That's a no-brainer. No cost, $250 a month savings. A year from now, rates might be lower. Do it again. And we're actually keeping their mortgage with a 29-year term instead of stretching it back out to 30. A year from now, if rates drop enough, we do it again. We do the loan at a 28-year term. So they're not adding more time to their loan. So as interest rates are dropping, don't just say, hey, wait, I'm not going to do anything because I want to wait for rates to go down. You have to think about your personal circumstances, and you need to get professional advice, and I'm interviewing to be that professional. I am not here to talk you into doing a loan. I'm here to talk you through doing a loan. I'm here to give you the options, give you a total cost analysis of what, and it's an online spreadsheet. It's a web page that I create that's customized directly for you. And it breaks down your current situation versus 2 or 3 scenarios of what we can do depending upon what your needs are. And we do that to help guide you through the process and help you make a decision. I don't care whether you do a loan today or next year or 5 years from now. I'm interviewing to be your lender to guide you through that process. And you need somebody on your side who understands how the mortgage industry works, understands the ins and outs of all the different loan programs, and helps to give you advice that accomplishes both your short-term and your long-term goals. Last thing I want to tell you about is to sign up for my free monthly home and equity analysis. This is basically there should be a QR code floating over my head. If not, you'll see it in the description down below. And it is a system that sends you a monthly digest. It is absolutely free of charge. It gives you an idea of what your home value is this month, an idea of what your balance has gone down to based upon the input that you put in there of, hey, I got the loan at this date, it was this balance and this interest rate, and it keeps track of your progress. It keeps track of how much equity you've got. It's kind of like the bank statements or your stock asset statement for one of the biggest assets you have, which is your home equity. And it gives you some general ideas of things you should be thinking about. Like, hey, maybe it's time for an insurance checkup. Or maybe it's time to look at pulling some cash out to pay off some other debt because you have a lot of equity. Maybe it's time to lower your monthly payment because interest rates have fallen. This free digest, you can sign up, it sends it to you monthly. There's no obligation and there's no cost. It simply keeps you updated on where you're at with your home equity. So sign up for that. Please reach out if you have any questions, and I look forward to helping guide you through the refinancing process.